Assalamu alaikum. This is Hena Zuberi, and you're watching Muslim Network News. The U.S. Census Bureau announced yesterday that the total population of the United States has reached 331 million people. This makes it the nation's second slowest population growth rate in its history. Population changes will affect the country's politics. Texas will gain 2 seats in Congress, and Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, as well as Oregon will each gain 1 seat. Other key states will lose congressional seats before the 2022 midterm elections. These are California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. New York actually lost one House seat because it was 89 people short to count. The change reflects a shift in the country's power dynamics, with political clout moving from states in the Midwest and Northeast to those in the South and West. The Federal Justice Department will launch an investigation into whether there's a pattern of discrimination or excessive force within the ranks of the Louisville, Kentucky Metropolitan Police Department. Attorney General Merrick Garland made the announcement on Monday. The probe comes more than a year after the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor by Louisville police. Taylor's killing, as well as that of George Floyd in Minnesota last year, led to protests across the country and around the world against police brutality and racism. This has also pressured the government to take the issue more seriously, prompting new police reform legislation, while others are considering abolition. Discussions are ongoing in Congress over a bipartisan bill to re-examine and change laws surrounding policing in the United States. But some, like Democratic Representative Cori Bush of Missouri, said that she would refuse to vote for any new law that compromises on civil lawsuit protections currently given to police officers. She told CNN's Abby Phillip that we compromise, we die. Bush explained that qualified immunity would be unnecessary if police are just and fair in their work. Compromising on this would lead to more deaths. In the midst of Ramadan, Muslims at the Moorhead Fargo Islamic Center in Minnesota found their mosque vandalized with hate speech on Sunday. A swastika, the phrase "death to Islam," and racial epithets were painted at the main entrance of the mosque. A back window was also broken. Hamid Adel Molla is the mosque's vice president. He said that the surveillance video footage showed a man wearing camouflage clothing, a mask, and dark sunglasses near the masjid on Saturday night. He was seen calling someone on a cell phone and then began spray painting the mosque. Police are currently investigating the crime. On Sunday afternoon, just hours after discovering the vandalism, neighbors from other religious groups showed up to support the Muslim community and help clean up. We have a detailed report on vandalism in American mosques tonight, so keep watching Muslim Network TV. Muslim contributions to the state of Illinois may soon become part of the school lesson plan if a new bill is passed. Filed by Democrat State Senator Laura Ellman, it aims to recognize past and present contributions of Muslims in the state. If passed, it would require all Illinois public schools to include such lessons. Ellman said it was a collective responsibility to ensure all residents of the state to feel represented. And this starts by making sure students learn about people like them in school. The bill passed the Senate on Wednesday. It now moves to the Illinois House. The bill also includes a declaration of January 17th as Muhammad Ali Day in the state. The date recognizes the late Muslim American world heavyweight boxing champion's birthday. Minnesota Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar plans to reintroduce the National Police Misuse of Force Investigation Board Act next week. This would create a new federal agency to independently investigate police abuse of power. Omar filed a bill last December in the U.S. House of Representatives to move the initiative forward. If passed, the law would establish the investigation board as an independent and bipartisan body of 8 members appointed by the president for 6-year terms. It would investigate deaths caused by police and incidents involving the use of force resulting in serious injury. The board would collect demographic data on police killings, could issue recommendations, and even have the power to withhold federal grant funding from local police departments that don't follow them. The board's findings would be admissible in court. These could be presented to juries in the case of criminal charges against police officers. President Joe Biden pledged more supplies and support to India on Sunday as the country grapples with a deadly surge of COVID. Rapid diagnostic kits, ventilators, oxygen generation, and related supplies, as well as personal protective equipment, are some of the items that US will immediately make available to India. India reported almost 350,000 new cases on Saturday. That was the fourth day in a row that the country set a world record for daily infections. The White House said that just as India has sent assistance to the United States last year, when hospitals were strained, it is determined to help India in its time of need. The US is sending a total of 60 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine to countries in need. According to the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, the US has 10 million doses now and will send the rest in May or June. The Trump administration had ordered 300 million doses of AstraZeneca last May. It is unclear where these doses are or if they were ever manufactured. Pakistan's President Arif Alvi is looking forward to peace and stability in Afghanistan now that America plans to withdraw all of its troops by September 11th. In an interview with the Voice of America, Alvi said Pakistan wants stability on its borders. He noted that Pakistan's interest in peace in Afghanistan reflects its own concerns for the country, independent of American interests. Alvi said that Pakistan was in the best position to help rebuild Afghanistan due to its long-standing historic and regional ties. Pakistan has taken in over 3 million Afghans over the last 4 decades, starting from the 1979 invasion of the country by the former Soviet Union. Alvi said Pakistan can play a big role in helping rebuild the country's infrastructure, as well as providing expertise in education and the health sector. The UK has a fight over dates. Labour leader pulls out from an iftar. Pro-Israel lobbying persuaded one influential British politician to withdraw from an interfaith public iftar this week. Labour Party leader Keir Starmer bowed to pressure and decided not to attend the virtual event, which was hosted by the Ramadan Tent Project. It was despite agreeing to take part last week. Starmer decided to withdraw after pro-Israel lobby group Board of Deputies told him about the organizers' previous comments on Twitter. This included a tweet supporting the boycott of Israeli-produced dates. Items produced by Israel in illegal settlements contravene international law. The British organization Friends of Al-Aqsa, along with a number of Muslim groups, have issued a petition demanding an explanation from Starmer. It accuses him of double standards, saying that since fasts in Ramadan are traditionally first broken with dates, it's important that they are ethically sourced. And since Israel's settlements are illegal under international law, boycotting their goods is widely recognized as a legitimate form of activism. The recent YouGov poll shows that 61% of labor members support the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel, with only 8% in opposition. Our report on Ramadan today is about a special charity. Once a year, every Muslim does a special charity called Zakat al-Fitr. This is done early in Ramadan to ensure those with lesser means to celebrate Eid can celebrate. See a special report from Ali Khalaf and Saleha Farouk on this wonderful tradition.
Eid is a Muslim religious holiday and an occasion of special joy, widely considered as the Muslim Christmas with some considerable differences. This joyous holiday occurs after the holy month of Ramadan concludes. Muslims worldwide start their Eid by donating 1 day's worth of food to those less fortunate. This donation, called zakat, is given to help support other Muslims join and celebrate the occasion of Eid. Every adult Muslim pays zakat for themselves and their dependents. Also called Zakatul Fitr, this donation is given before the start of Eid prayers in the morning. Muslims are encouraged, however, to practice charitable giving throughout the holy month of Ramadan. The minimum giving amount per person is estimated to be at $10. However, this is only a minimum.
A Minnesota masjid was vandalized this week with Islamophobic graffiti. Here's a report by Ali Khalaf and Saleha Farouk.
Muslim worshippers in the Moorhead Fargo Islamic Community Center were attacked on April the 24th. The attacker painted a red swastika symbol onto the building and also wrote the phrases, "Death to Islam" and "Go to hell." The American Civil Liberties Union data shows that Minnesota mosques are attacked at least once or twice a year. California, New York, and Texas are other top 3 states in terms of Islamophobic attacks. Many attacks, however, came well before these mosques were ever built. Right now, Hindu American extremists are joining these right-wing individuals in attacking other mosques in Naperville, Illinois. The original Minnesota attack, however, is currently being investigated by the FBI.
After the break, we'll discuss the rising Islamophobia in the United States. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
So it's nothing extraordinary what we do. It's just a human to human, like brothers to brothers and sisters to sisters. Nothing else, nothing more.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps, I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut, and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness. When she regained, and in the morning and soldiers were themselves away, she ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day-long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free, they are not. Please stand up, work with Burma Task Force, and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Muslim groups across the country are calling on President Joe Biden's administration to name a special envoy to monitor and combat Islamophobia. In the letter, the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations told Biden a special envoy to monitor and combat Islamophobia at the State Department could help address the issue that affects the third largest religious group in the country. To discuss this in detail, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Hena. Banning Muslims was a Trump's idea. He ran for office promising that, and he fulfilled his promise. Biden, as a candidate, promised that he's going to lift the Muslim ban. And on the very first day in office, he lifted the Muslim ban through executive order. Muslims around the country are thankful, but Muslim leaders, while being thankful, are saying, is this enough to fight Islamophobia, which was created throughout the Trump administration? To discuss with us is a Muslim leader, Osama Jamal. Welcome to Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me.
Osama Jamal is Secretary General of the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations. You have this detailed story in the USA Today that lifting Muslim ban was not enough. What do you mean?
Well, first of all, the issue of Islamophobia in America is real. And when Donald Trump made a campaign promise to his base to do a Muslim ban, was only another step of something that was already going on, which is Islamophobia. Not by just a campaign promise, but unfortunately, it was in government institutions. Many times, civil rights organizations would spot a trainer, a speaker to government agencies who is Islamophobic or she is Islamophobic, and they are trying to educate our officials or members of government. So this was going on even before Trump takes over. And now when Trump wanted to fulfill his promise to his base and did the Muslim ban, of course, it was un-American. It was wrong. It emboldened the Islamophobic groups and therefore became essential for the next president from the other side of the aisle who cherish and who promise equal rights and the American dream and the American principles and the foundation of our nation, which we are nations of immigrants. That means we come from all parts of the world. He made that promise to revoke or turn over the Muslim ban on his first day of office. And thankfully, and we appreciate it very much from President Biden, who fulfilled his promise and did sign the first day to revoke the Muslim ban. Now, that's a good gesture. That's a good message to be sent out. But there's still much more to be done in government, much be done in Congress, and thankfully, most recently in Congress, they're trying to pass legislations or a declaration that this should not really be repeated by any president in the future.
So
So,
may you also say in USA today that Islamophobia is rising, and that's why more need to be done. What is the evidence that Islamophobia is rising in America?
well, just recently in Minnesota, there was a mosque that was vandalized, and hate messages been written all over its walls. So this is just one evidence. We expect Islamophobia to rise even with Biden's coming to office, because that's the expected reaction of the far right and the white supremacists to assert their presence in the country. That even though Donald Trump is no longer in office, but their ideas, their principles, their hatred, unfortunately, is still exist, and therefore it has to take more than just a signature on a paper. It says we revoke Islamophobia to really have the peace and the true manifestation of one nation under God. So I think there would be much more than just.
So you mentioned attack on Minnesota mosque a couple of days ago. Um, is it common for mosque in America to be attacked?
Well, unfortunately, there has been a trend, not on a larger scale, but enough to raise serious concern. There has been incidents from time to time that you see either a mosque being torched in fire, vandalized, shot at, and that's just the mosque. Now, when you talk about individuals attack, some they lost their lives because of these attacks. So it is not just, of course, our mosques our mosques are our symbol, but also the lives of Muslims who are walking in the streets, our mothers, our sisters, our wives, our daughters, who are very obviously recognized and easily recognized as Muslims. So that really keeps the concern of the Muslim leadership around the country that we need to do much more than just revoking an executive order. Which much appreciated. Again, I don't want to belittle what Biden did. He did a very good step, but we need more institutionalized approach. Yes.
Do you feel that the people who invaded the Capitol Hill, there were elements of Islamophobes among them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They, element. Look, this was a total reaction to Barack Obama becoming the first Black president of the United States, especially when you compound that with his middle name. Although he declared that he's not a Muslim, but when you say Barack Hussein Obama, this is really kind of fueled the Islamophobes, and maybe this Muslim ban became like double down on the hatred. So those elements who went on Capitol Hill on January 6th of 2021, where, of course, they're far right, they were against everything, not just Muslims, against
So
Jews.
do you think there is an overlap between the right-wing extremist and Islamophobe? Do they more or less the same type of people?
They have common. Some of them do come from the far right, absolutely. Some of them are specialized in Islamophobia. They have nothing to do, but they focus on Muslims and Muslims' a presence in the United States, and also they have elements of hatred even to Islams all over the world, and they have connections with other countries. We have seen that in Europe. we have seen the same gurus of Islamophobia in the United States have a good relationship and sometimes lectures in Europe. It is a combination, and it is a collaboration, unfortunately, between these forces.
Do you feel that media is doing a good job when it comes to focusing on Islamophobia?
Well, obviously, Fox News and the likes would not focus on Islamophobia. Liberal, progressive media, not to the degree that became an alarming to the American people that Islamophobia does exist and we must fight it. They are much better than in the past, and maybe Donald Trump put them to test and forced them to speak about Islamophobia in some incidents. They have not done enough. They did some, but not enough. Not to that point where we believe they are a true champion of human rights and civil rights in this country on equal basis. When there is an attack on a Jewish synagogue, the entire network news all over talking about it. In this Minnesota incident, we did not hear anything in the main news in the same level that we have seen in others.
Is there President Biden or anyone in the federal government condemned attack on Minnesota mosque so far?
I cannot speak for that. I really did not see yet myself, but it doesn't mean that they did not issue something like this. If they did, that is commendable. That is assuring that they are watching and they will not let any incident of this sort, whether for Muslims or non-Muslims, without immediately commenting and then immediately denouncing these types of acts. If they did not, then this is the kind of things we say signing the executive order is not enough, and it has to go much further in instituting against Islamophobia.
You also say in your USA interview that you're not satisfied with the Muslim participation in the Biden administration. What are the reasons for your dissatisfaction?
Well, not quite dissatisfaction. We appreciate President Biden having many of Muslims serving in his administration. We just did not see a Muslim on his cabinet. The president said he wants to have an administration that represents America. And we have seen other groups being represented in his cabinet. And we believe that a Muslims to serve in his cabinet is an icing on the cake for his request or his interest to have a cabinet that represents America. So while we do appreciate that he had Muslims appointed to various positions within his administration, but to the level of cabinet, we have not seen one. We have seen multiple positions for other groups, and there is none for Muslims on a cabinet level. We hope that the president will value Muslim contribution, will see the value of Muslim Americans who really have what it takes to serve honorably in his administration, and we see someone goes to the level of the cabinet level.
Well, before we end our conversation, tell us about how many members the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations have, which you represent as a Secretary General.
Well, the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, we are approaching 35 organizations, and some members of our organization or our council are councils within themselves. And so by extensions, you can say we have quite a bit of reach and base within our council. For instance, we have the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California. We have the Majlis al-Shura, the Muslim leadership in New York. We have the Council of Islamic Organization, Greater Chicago. We have now a new council joining us, the Arizona Council. We have the Northwest Pacific Muslim Forum of the Northwest Pacific, which is about 3 or 4 states, Alaska, Wyoming, Washington, and Idaho, and Oregon. So we have quite a bit of members of our council who are also councils, and they do have other membership within them. We believe the U.S. Council will continue to grow, will continue to encompass our community so that we have a good representation of the beautiful diversity within the Muslim community. I think the Muslim community could be a beautiful mirror of what America is all about. We have white, we have black, we have Arabs, we have non-Arabs, we have young, we have all types of even profession and specialties, from civil rights, legal rights, grassroots, relief organizations. It is truly a great representation, a great diversity, and we call it unity without uniformity.
Thank you so much, Osama Jamal. Appreciate your participation in today's news segment. Osama Jamal is Secretary General of the Council of Muslim Organizations in the United States. Back to you, Hena.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. In-depth analysis on the recent Syrian refugee crisis is coming up next. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps, I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut, and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness. When she regained, and in the morning and soldiers were themselves away, She ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day-long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free, they are not. Please stand up, work with Burma Task Force, and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome back. For millions of Syrians, the humanitarian aid and protection bought by the UN, partners, and American Muslims is their only source of survival. Despite this aid, the humanitarian situation keeps getting worse. President Biden is also being criticized for limiting refugee entries to just 15,000. For more detail, let's go to Saleha Farouk for in-depth analysis.
Thank you so much, Hena. I really do appreciate that. I'm here today with Yasser Tabera, who is an attorney, as well as the co-founder of the Syrian Forum Foundation, as well as the president of the American Relief Coalition of Syria. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Yasser.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I know that you're not currently in the United States right now. However, we are seeing a lot of headlines coming from that region regarding the refugee crisis. So I just wanted to first bring to your attention something that you might have already heard coming from the United States Senate, of course. Some sentiments, some words coming from one of the second highest ranking Democrat in the Senate, who is, of course, Senator Dick Durbin. And he recently called President Biden's announced limit on or his cap on the refugee number admissions as unacceptable. So when we hear about limiting the number of refugees to just 15,000, especially in a time of the world where there's a global crisis in health and pandemic, where of course refugees and displaced peoples are most probably the hardest hit in the world, how would this limitation on accepting refugees affect displaced peoples, internally displaced peoples, externally, those seeking for asylum? And what have you been able to see from the perspective of your nonprofit work? If you could just share a few sentiments.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think the United States, as the world's one of the world's most powerful countries, if not the most powerful country, has a responsibility to deal with issues of mass migration and mass refugee crises, especially ones that are caused by things like war or suppression and things of that nature. Syria being a prime example of that. It's one of the biggest, been actually labeled the biggest humanitarian crisis since World War II. And so it is really amazing that the United States, I mean, one has to say that the US has spent hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of supporting Syrian refugees and internally displaced people inside Syria. But opinions differ. But we are of the opinion that the United States has not done enough in terms of its political engagement in the Syrian crisis, and in terms of fulfilling on its promises and its potential power and position in this world to help prevent people like dictators like Bashar al-Assad and others from causing these enormous humanitarian disasters, man-made humanitarian disasters. And so the least that the U.S. can do at this point is to try to accept more refugees, not just from Syria, from the region. Those are people who are looking for opportunity. They're looking for a safe place to stay. The overwhelming majority of them are law-abiding, hardworking people. They're just looking for the bare minimum of safety and health standards, and so they can work and prosper, improve themselves, and just provide for their kids. So 15,000 is a ridiculously low number for a country like the United States, for sure.
Of course. And when talking about the idea of refugees being offered a safe haven or the right to return, we can't help but think of European countries like Denmark that recently welcomed thousands of Syrian refugees in particular as soon as the war took place in the region. But now we've also heard that these same countries, such as Denmark, are urging a lot of these same refugees to quote unquote return to the safe areas of Syria. So if you could just please talk to us about whether Syria right now would be safe to return, whether there are, so-called safe regions to return to, and on a more general level, would this be the right choice for most, or the most effective choice for thousands of displaced Syrians, whether it would be in Europe or America? Is it the idea of returning right now that would be most effective for their repatriation or for their well-being?
You see, I mean, one of the most important points in the issue that you brought up is, how do we define a safe environment? One of the things that really hasn't happened on an international level is a standardized definition of what is considered to be a safe and conducive to living environment in post-conflict or in areas that are going through conflicts like Syria. And so, a lot of people would just have different takes on it. What we've been able to do as Syrians, one of the organizations that we work with that is part of the Syrian Forum, which I have the pleasure of sitting on their board, is that we have been able to conduct. It's a think tank that basically conducted a number of surveys and a number of studies that surveyed the level of safety and security in terms of refugee repatriation in Syria. And we established a number of criteria, if you will. And what we've found that no region in Syria at this point should be considered by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, as safe or secure for people to be repatriated back to, including and perhaps especially the capital, Damascus, where the Assad regime is still in control of that area, and that is due to the simple reason that a lot of the cases that we've heard of people who attempted to return have been subject to political persecution and detention and torture. This is aside from the lack of law and order, the fact that people are being kidnapped, for ransom. This is all not talking about the horrid economic situations and conditions that all regions of Syria are subjected to. So clearly, what's happening in Denmark is very alarming in terms of setting precedents that a European country that is known to have accepted a relatively large number of refugees in the past from all over the world, especially in the region, now they're pushing for the repatriation of some Syrian refugees. It's definitely not safe to return to Syria. It's definitely not secure. Syria is definitely not a secure environment, and the repatriation of some of these refugees will basically cause or will put them in harm's way. And this is something that countries like Denmark and others who actually think about repatriation in these conditions will bear the legal responsibility of.
Well, that's definitely, we've been able to hear that loud and clear from you. Not safe to return at this time. So, when looking at countries like Denmark, of course, we can't help but remember one country that's reportedly accepted the highest number of refugees around the world, which is Turkey. They currently host the highest number of Syrian refugees, but several hundreds of thousands of other refugees are in countries like Lebanon and Iraq and Jordan. And certainly during this conversation, you've been able to speak to a lot of the different negative effects and the impacts that refugees are going through, but also what they might be looking for. So, regarding the many that are currently living in exile and without proper access to refugee camps or other essential needs at this time, these same people are also dealing with, for example, unemployment and mass job loss just because of COVID-19. So, from your perspective and from your point of view at the American Relief Coalition of Syria, if you could name a few, what are some humanitarian programs or even just some services that are most needed right now for these Syrian refugees that are dealing with this displacement issue?
Well, I mean, we have the internally displaced people who are in northern Syria, and there's a few million people who are internally displaced in just in northwest Syria. We're talking about 3 million people, if you can imagine, the majority of which are actually makeshift camps. I mean, they're living in actual tents, and so these are people who require a tremendous amount of support. At the American Relief Coalition for Syria, we are a coalition of a number of organizations that have a myriad of programs. Some of these programs focus on shifting these internally displaced people from refugee camps to more sustainable living conditions. So we have programs that have to do with building actual living units, brick and mortar, as opposed to tents, because of the environmental conditions are just horrendous. And so we've been able to move a few thousand of these refugees from these camps, from these tents to actual homes, and we're building a few more thousand units between the member organizations of the American Relief Coalition of Syria in general. Another flagship program focuses on the refugees, not the IDPs, but the refugees, Syrian refugees in Turkey specifically. There's a program called Rizq for relief and for professional development. And that program has been able, what it does, it actually trains, trains, Syrian refugees from all sorts of backgrounds who happen to be living in Turkey, and introduces them to the ABCs of the Turkish job market, including linguistic instruction and things like that. It also matches them with job opportunities within the Turkish job market. Since 2013, Rizq has been able to place over 20,000 Syrian refugees into the Turkish job market. And this is, it spans a large spectrum of jobs, anywhere from day laborers all the way to teachers and engineers and such. So there are a tremendous amount of programs and a lot of really good programs that are taking place in I can tell you in northern Syria and Turkey specifically, also in Lebanon and Jordan. But unfortunately, the need is so dire and it's so tremendous that international involvement is absolutely a must, and the attention of countries like the United States, and Europe is absolutely necessary, not just to support these types of programs and expand them, but also to treat this issue from its very root and treat the political file with the attention and gravitas that it actually deserves, to end the stalemate that Russia and China, for example, has been creating in the Security Council to resolve the Syrian crisis.
Well, thank you so much for also touching upon a few different organizations that people could potentially check out online and maybe share their support, lend their support to, of course. During our conversation, I couldn't help but you noticed that you mentioned a little bit about Bashar al-Assad. So I wanted to just touch upon that really briefly. So the Syrian president, of course, at this time, as you might have, of course, unfortunately heard, is that he did submit his application to run for re-election next month. Now, this, of course, presidential election of his, it is being, of course, opposed by governments around the world. But just from a socio-political perspective, if you can just talk to us about why the people of Syria are calling this upcoming election, they're not considering it neither free nor fair. If you know anything about what's the current sentiment on the ground, if you could share that with our viewers today.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that the overwhelming majority of Syrians have been used to these type of sham elections that have been taking place in Syria for decades. I mean, it's not just Bashar al-Assad, but his father that has garnered consistently over 95% of votes. It wasn't until Bashar al-Assad came to power and brought that down a little bit to about 88% or something like that. So I mean, it's a common joke amongst Syrians, and it doesn't matter what your political disposition is as a Syrian, whether you're opposition or neutral or even in support of Bashar al-Assad. Everybody knows that these are not fair and free elections. I mean, these are I call them pathetic attempts to sort of legitimize the image of Bashar al-Assad and his regime in front of the international community. And what is noteworthy is that these coming elections have been delayed, and they've not been delayed by Bashar al-Assad himself or the Syrian government. They've been delayed by Russia. Because Russia has been hoping to broker some sort of an economic package deal to basically incentivize the West in general and the US and Europe in particular to start pouring money into the Syrian government and lift the sanctions that have been imposed on the Syrian regime. In exchange for some sort of political deal. But the Russians have not been able to reach a deal like that, and because they're just they haven't been able to put anything serious on the table, due to the fact that Syria is also to them one of many geopolitical issues that they're basically dealing with the West on. And so they have caused the delay of the announcement of Bashar al-Assad candidacy up until a few days ago, which is very unusual. Usually it is announced a couple of months before. So again, I think these are I could tell you that the overwhelming view of Syrians at large, both inside Syria and outside Syria, as these are things that are just done routinely to attempt to give some sort of a cloak of legitimacy to this pariah regime in the international stage, and nothing will come out of it. Nothing will change. Things will keep on deteriorating, unfortunately, until there is a root cause solution for this crisis.
Well, I appreciate you bringing in Russia as a strategic positioning, international ally of Syria right now. And I really also wanted to thank you for your time, Yasser Tabara, who is the president of the American Coalition of Syria. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're going back to Hena in the newsroom.
Thank you, Salaha. That is all from our Washington studios tonight. Keep watching Muslim Network TV. For more, visit our website, muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.
Special thanks to our official supporter, Zagat Foundation of America.